For over 3 decades, John Harlan had called the quiet edge of Pine Hollow home, a sleepy corner where towering evergreens stood like silent guardians along every backyard, and the gravel roads still echoed with whispers of a simpler time. His 2-acre plot, handed down from his folks, was more than just land. It was his anchor, his refuge. The single-story house, with its sturdy stone steps and steel-reinforced gates, wasn't flashy, but it was his. John, a retired fence contractor with a knack for keeping things secure, had poured years into restoring the backyard himself, coaxing life into every blade of grass, every carefully placed stone. He'd spend his days tinkering on small landscaping projects, sharpening his tools, or sipping black coffee under the patio, the wind and birds his only company. To John, property wasn't just dirt, and deedsit was who he was. His boundaries, both the physical ones and the ones in his head, were non-negotiable. He didn't bother anyone, and he expected the same in return. When the old house at the end of the street sold last spring, John didn't bat an eye. Folks came and went in Pine Hollow, usually chased off by the HOA's petty squabbles or the isolation of the place. But the new neighbor wasn't just another face passing through. Susan Whitaker blew in like a storm, all noise and fake charm, trailing a cloud of cheap rose perfume and an air of self-righteous purpose. Within weeks, she was everywhere tacking up flyers for some neighborhood vitality council, emailing surveys to folks whose addresses she shouldn't have had, and pushing for a community garden tour nobody asked for. She called it building connections. Most folks called it nosy, but Susan didn't seem to care what anyone thought. John's first run-in with her came in June. She was walking her yappy terrier, Muffin, past his gate when she stopped, craned her neck over his fence, and flashed a smile that was all teeth. "Hey there, I'm Susan. Your backyard's gorgeous, love, that natural ridge back there. Looks like it could be part of the old town path, don't you think?" John, elbow deep in fixing his rainwater tank, gave a curt nod and went back to his bolts. He met her type before, people who ask questions just to size you up. She lingered a bit, her smile stretching wider, then sauntered off. It felt harmless enough, maybe just the awkward enthusiasm of a newcomer trying too hard. But something about the way she said Old Town Path stuck in John's craw, like a splinter he couldn't dig out. 2 weeks later, he found white plastic stakes jabbed into the dirt along the back of his yard, right inside his property line, 3 feet past the stone wall his dad built in '78. They were spaced exactly 10 feet apart, curving along the dry creek bed behind his shed, with nylon tape tied between them like some half-baked surveyor's project. No note, no warning, just these markers trespassing on his land. John yanked the closest one out, the tape snapping in the breeze, and tossed it in his garage without a second thought. That was his first mistake. The next day, Susan was back, this time with 2 guys in khakis and logoed polos, one clutching a clipboard, the other unrolling blueprints. John spotted them from his window, standing just outside his gate, pointing at his backyard like they were appraising a vacant lot. When he stepped outside, Susan's voice hit him like a kindergarten teacher scolding a kid. "Oh, we're just scoping out the old public trail access. The town's looking at reactivating its historical value, you know?" John's jaw tightened. "This ain't a trail. It's my backyard. No easement here." The clipboard guy looked away, sheepish. Susan's smile didn't budge. "Well, we'll let the paperwork sort it out. Just being neighborly with a heads up." 3 days later, a letter arrived from a community estudder group, one Susan had apparently whipped together, claiming a 1960s trail had been neglected and was now up for public reclamation. The words were vague but sharp, hinting at encroachment and land recovery protocols that sounded innocent until you knew how bureaucracies worked. John dug out his deed, survey, and boundary record from a lockbox, his lawyer chuckling over the phone. "It's nothing yet, but it's brewing. Document everything: photos, timestamps, even the weather." That night, John walked his property with a notepad, camera, and measuring tape, logging every marker, every shrub, every inch. He wasn't scared. He was precise. When someone questions your line between private and public, you don't just believe it's yours, you prove it. What rattled him wasn't the stakes or the letter. It was how fast things went from quirky to calculated. Susan wasn't just confused, she was orchestrating something, whether it was ego, some grand VY shown, or something shadier. She had connections, confidence, and the nerve to act like she already owned the outcome. John installed 2 motion lights by his gate and tweaked his cameras, not expecting a break-in, but because silence wasn't trustworthy anymore. A week later, his gate was smashed, not weathered or hit by a car cracked clean through, like someone swung hard with intent. Splinters and a bent hinge littered the grass. The camera feed? Blank for 20 minutes at 3:12 a.m., right when it happened. The log showed a signal spike, maybe interference, maybe sabotage. That crossed the line. John didn't call the cops yet. He called his lawyer, booked a cease and desist, and felt that old, cold tension creep in the kind you get when someone's testing how far they can push before you shove back. Susan still waved when she passed, still chirped about the weather, acting like she hadn't staked his land or smashed his gate. But the air had changed. The crickets went quiet too soon, the backyard felt too still, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. John didn't sleep much after that. He wasn't afraid, just felt the shift. This wasn't about a trail. It was a war. He filed a complaint with the town and sent Susan a cease and desist via courier, all clean and legal. A restraining order went in too, not to block her from the sidewalk, but to keep her hands off his property. When a land registry rep showed up to check the trail, John walked him through every marker, every wall, his documents ready. The guy left in 20 minutes, muttering about the yard's upkeep. That same day, an unsigned letter appeared in John's mailbox, printed on plain paper. The land is for everyone. You're blocking something bigger. The font matched Susan's old flyers. It wasn't a threat, but it was close manipulative, cloaked in fake V-wire-do. Then his recycling bins were tipped over, content strewn across his driveway. Petty, but deliberate. John cleaned it up, added a camera, and stayed calm. Susan upped the ante, parading past his gate with a clipboard and 2 strangers, pointing at his yard like it was a public park. Green access mapping, she called it, smiling that hollow smile. John stared her down. My property's not up for debate. Her head tilted, patronizing. I understand you saw so. A town hearing was announced, a motion to reopen the trail. It wasn't approved yet, but it meant Susan had dragged this into the public square, where bureaucrats who'd never seen his land would decide its fate. John's lawyer said these hearings often fizzled with solid proof, but the motion itself was trouble. John hired an independent surveyor, upgraded his lights, and consulted a fence guy for a steel gate. Every move was calculated, not paranoid, because Susan wasn't just loud. She was relentless. Then came the night that changed everything. A loud clang echoed from the backyard. John bolted outside to find his temporary gate plywood until the steel arrived split in half, muddy boot prints trailing away. A shadow moved near the shed, vanishing into the dark. He didn't chase. He pulled his security drive and called the sheriff. The grainy footage showed a heavy-set woman in a windbreaker swinging a shovel at the gate. Her face was blurry, but the build screamed Susan. The deputy took it seriously, but warned, no clear face, no charge. But it's on file. John wasn't angry, he was tired. Not of fighting, but of the game. This wasn't about logic or lines anymore. It was attrition, a slow grind to break his will. Still, he doubled down, documenting every move, preparing for the hearing. He got a call from his lawyer. The city would hear the trail petition in 2 weeks. A loss wouldn't be final, but it'd give Susan a story to wield, a way to paint John as the bad guy. He hired a top-tier surveyor, who confirmed no trail ever existed on his land. 2 neighbors, a shy widow and a young couple, sent letters backing him, hinting at Susan's bullying petitions pushed on folks who didn't understand what they signed. At the hearing, John walked in with a leather folder, calm as stone. Susan sat with a junior lawyer, all smiles and confidence. She went first, spinning a tale of lost trails and community spirit, her photos and memories heavy on nostalgia, light on facts. Her lawyer leaned on moral duty, not law. John didn't play that game. He laid out his deed, surveys, police reports, and vandalism photos, his voice steady. This isn't about trails. It's about control. My land's not disputed in law, it's being targeted by stories. If we let tales trump boundaries, no home's safe. The panel didn't deliberate long. They rejected the petition. Susan's smile vanished, her lawyer scrambling to pack up. John didn't celebrate. He knew Susan wouldn't stop pivot. 2 weeks later, a new complaint hit, this time from the Environmental Board. His landscaping was allegedly messing with water flow and native plants. Inspectors came, poker-faced, but left empty-handed when John showed his permits and soil reports. He hired his own consultant to back it up, and the case collapsed. But Susan wasn't done. Flyers appeared around town. What's 1 yard worth? Never naming John, but pointing right at him. Neighbors started avoiding him, their cars slowing by his fence like they were casing it. One night, John woke to a faint noise outside. His cameras showed nothing, but his backlights were unplugged, boot prints pressed into the dirt by the gate. No damage, just present someone standing there, watching. He filed another report, added it to his stack. Then, one evening, he saw an orange glow behind the trees. Heart pounding, he sprinted to the backyard. A pile of leaf bags and mulch smoldered near his fence, a melted bottle reeking of gasoline. Arson. He doused it, called the fire department, and watched them cordon off his yard. The fire marshal agreed, deliberate. No proof, but John knew. He didn't crack. He called a journalist friend who covered land disputes, not for headlines, but for a record. He hired a security firm to sweep for bugs or cameras clean, but the tech warned, this isn't amateur. John fortified everything. Impact-resistant fences, floodlights, encrypted backups. Susan wasn't just a pest anymore. She was a predator, smiling through lies while tightening the noose. The breaking point came on a Sunday evening. John pulled into his driveway and saw the gate ajar, deep grooves in the dirt. Taser in hand, he rounded the house and froze. Susan stood in his backyard, shovel raised, staking out a path like a woman unhinged. This was always public, she screamed, her voice slurring, a half-empty bottle at her feet. You can't hoard history. Her eyes were wild, her control gone. John didn't shout. He backed away, called the sheriff, and watched as they escorted her out, defiant even as she stumbled. It's public ground. I have a right. The deputy didn't argue, just cited her for trespassing and vandalism. The report was damning. Aggravated trespassing, vandalism, public intoxication. Susan's committee seat vanished quietly. Her flyers disappeared. Her coffee chats fizzled. Neighbors nodded to John again, cautious but civil. He pushed through a new zoning law, requiring hard proof for easement claims, a shield for anyone facing another Susan. His yard healed new grass, new shrubs, a final floodlight he rarely used but loved knowing was there. The gate got V-wire bolts, silent hinges. It wasn't for Susan. It was for him, a reminder that boundaries, once tested, demand clarity, not rage. Pine Hollow settled. Susan's house sat dark, her influence a ghost. John didn't gloat. He just lived, coffee in hand. The wind is company again. The file stayed locked away, the dispute closed for good. But every time he touched the gate's latch, he felt it not VY Tory, but something deeper. He hadn't just held his ground. He defined it. What do you think, did John go too far with his fortress mentality, or was he right to fight tooth and nail? Could Susan have had a point about shared land, or was she just a power-hungry bully? Drop your take in the comments. Smash that like button if you felt the tension, and subscribe for more stories that'll keep you on edge.